What's
Hey
up, guys?
What's up,
guys? It's Rowan here. Let's do that again, Rowan and Terry. What's up, guys? It's Rowan and Terry here from ArtofSmartTV, and we are bringing you another episode of the HSC Economics Review. And this is a special episode that we're bringing to you because it's not about current trends in the economy. It's about something even more important, and that is how on earth do you study and prepare for your HSC trials for economics. So in this video, Terry and I are going to unpack a 4-step process for how you should study for your economic trials so that you can nail it. We're going to go step by step exactly what you need to do so that you can really get that band 6 that we assume, given that you watch this show and are clearly an economics nerd, are aiming for. So, what's step number 1 that students need to start with?
So very, very fundamental to any subject you study, but particularly with economics, you really need to have a good, solid set of notes. And so if you haven't already done your notes, I would really advise you to start ASAP. Like pause the video and go make a new Word document, start your notes. Some people prefer to write, some people prefer to type. I prefer typing just because it gives, especially for economics, there's a lot of formulas and graphs, and you can really just get those in there nice and easily. I think if you're going to write them, you are limited in some of the graphs you can use, because I think some of the RBA graphs, they're wonderful. Some trading economics, they're really good. But the main here is just to be as efficient as you can. Yeah, have a good set of notes. I had a lot of color in there, and we have a little structure to help you out here. So the first thing is you got to start with just your syllabus dot points, right? Because at the end of the day, when the teachers make your test, whether it's for the trial, whether it's for the actual HSC, it comes straight from that syllabus. So I think that's definitely, if you're going to be efficient, that's where you go straight. That's where you go first. All right, so start with your dot points, have your definitions in there, okay? Having your textbook definitions in there is fine. If your teacher said something really cool and you think that really adds something, add that in too, right? It doesn't have to always just be your textbook definitions. The next thing is just to have your key theory in there, right? Have your formulas, have your explanations, have some relevant diagrams in there if it helps you understand. Like I said, I use a lot of color, and I don't actually always write my notes as like a textbook. Sometimes I write them just as if I was talking. As if I was talking to somebody, because that is a way for me to remember it a little bit easier. And then after that, after you've got your theory down pat, what you then want to do is add some examples, because as you'll know, when we go through the essays, you're going to have a lot of examples of what's been happening recently. You're going to need statistics, you're going to need events, you're going to need trends. Okay, so you need to have those in there after your theory. And then also, if you really want to push for that band 6, really prepare yourself for those essays. Actually analyze what's happening in that stuff you've just pulled, right? Analyze it, talk about the limitations, talk about the strengths. And then you've got a really, really solid set of notes. The other thing is, I think, Rowan, you kind of like this. It's having a page of stats. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think what will happen is you'll end up now having hopefully an awesome set of notes, but you'll have statistics spread all the way throughout it. And so what can be really good, particularly as you get closer to your trial exams, is to extract all of the key statistics into like a single page, right? So you've got a single page cheat sheet of like all the stats that you need to know. So economic growth, inflation, unemployment, underemployment, the Gini coefficient, terms of trade, the CAT, the list goes on. You get the point, right? You've got the key set of stats that you need, because it just makes it easier, so that then the day or two before your exams, and we'll talk about that, you've got a quick reference to just go, great, I need to just make sure I'm on point for each of these stats so I can use them. So I think that can be a really beneficial additional task, that you've got your notes, syllabus driven, and then you've got an extra cheat sheet with your stats.
The other thing with that cheat sheet is maybe you can even just put the titles in and see if you can remember from the top of your head what the numbers are. You can just check it off as you've completed it.
That's right. So it's almost like a little test yourself that you can turn it into, which I think is a great idea and a great way to actually make sure you're on top of it. So guys, that's step number 1, right? You just got to get these notes together, and as Terry said, as quickly as possible, because really it's writing the notes is not actually studying for your trials. Yeah. It's preparing to study for your trials, okay? So step number 2 is where the study actually starts. Yeah. And that's memorizing content. So what we want to quickly cover is a couple of simple principles that we recommend that you use to make sure that you can memorize what is a fair bit of content as quickly as possible, so that when you're in the exam, it's just coming without you having to actually think. So I think from the 10 years of research we've done at ArtofSmart with top performing students across Australia, one of the really critical things we see is this idea that you should never just read. Now, reading has an incredibly poor memory retention rate. Some estimates are up to 10% of what we read we remember in 2 weeks. Now, 10% is really bad. Like, that sucks, right? So it's going to feel easy. It's going to be super tempting to pick up your economics notes and read it once, read it twice, and be like, yes, I just did some study. But honestly, you're going to remember so little of it. So the critical thing here is you've got to put pen to paper. So the rule is never just read, always write. Putting pen to paper, and we'll give you a way to do this, is going to be a really powerful way for you to actually start building that memory in a way that's going to act as a trigger point in your exam, because in every exam for economics, you are pen in hand writing. So it's going to help trigger the memory as well. Now, the suggestion that we have here is something called the rule of 3. And once again, this has been defined and uncovered from all of the research. So whenever we spoke to top performing students and we said, how did you memorize stuff? Like, how many times did you have to do something? They said, well, you know what? There was this sort of threshold point. Like, if I did something and repeated it a certain amount of times, it just was there. I could recall it. It was easy. And that magic number was 3. Like, we found that time and time again, students said 3 times. So what we want you to do is, once you've got your notes done, print them off, okay, get an exercise book, and you're going to do something 3 times. That's why it's called the rule of 3. The first time, you're going to get your notes out, you're going to get the exercise book, and you're going to go through your notes, and you're going to just write the key points. Dot point form, you might draw some little flow charts. It's not word for word. You're not trying to rote learn everything. You're just trying to refresh yourself on the key definitions, the key theories, some of the stats. You'll do that once, going through your entire notes. The second time, we want you to go through the notes, and this time focus on all the diagrams. Draw the diagrams for each of the main topics and then explain them. Because if you can do that, that's just covering the content in a slightly different way. It's more visual. It's going to tap into your spatial memory, which is your most powerful form of memory. And that's going to help you when you get into the exams, because you're going to need diagrams in your essays anyway. And then the final thing that you can do here is you can go through it a 3rd time. And as you go through it a 3rd time, pick key areas and key syllabus dot points and find a past HSC short answer question and try to use your notes to create a response to that short answer question. Right? So it's just going to now get you applying the content in a practical way, but it's not closed book, because if you apply the content and you get it wrong, guess what you're locking into your memory? The mistake, exactly. So we want you to still get it right. So you're going to do that. So that's memorizing content. Rule of 3, you've got the 3 repeats that you're doing. We've got to move to step 3 now, because that's just getting your content sort of in your head. We haven't really looked at essay writing and actual exam practice, right? So what's step 3, Terry?
So step 3 is actually writing practice essays. Because if you think about it, within that essay, it's actually just like an extended short answer. So if you'd rather do just the essays, it means you're going to practice short answers at the same time as the essays.
So just to highlight, that means that you could technically, if you run out of time, ideal world, you do rule of 3 and you do the 3rd one as a short answer. But if you're running out of time, you could actually skip that and jump into step number 3 here, which is essay writing, because you're doing both at the same time. Yeah. So essay writing, what are we talking about here, Terry?
Okay. So obviously, just to give you a bit of background with the essays, you're expected to write 2 essays. They're going to give you 4 options in the test. So there's a section 3 essay and a section 4 essay. There's 2 questions in each section. And they'll usually be on different topics. You have to be prepared for a wide range of topics. There's also no guarantee that it's just going to be topic 1, topic 2, topic 3, topic 4. They do like to mix things up, especially in the HSC and possibly in your school trials as well. So Rowan, I think you had an interesting idea in terms of what essays to actually study for. Do you want to just explain your reasoning for this?
Yeah, so one of the things that you want to do is, again, it's efficiency. That's the name of the game here, right? It's all about economics anyway, isn't it, right? So when you're thinking about essay writing, really what you want to try to do is to work out what's the minimum number of essays that I can write that gives me maximum coverage of the course, right? So you can be really strategic and go, well, you know what? There are certain ones that if I do these, I'm actually revising a huge amount of content and I'm covering myself for a wide range of questions that are highly probable in my trials or HSC exams. So I guess, Terry, what are some of these? So, I mean, my recommendation is there's 8 essays, I think, right? There's 2 essays per topic that give you coverage, which is 8 total. What are some of these topics that, you know, that we recommend that students should write an essay on?
Well, we'll start with topic 1, right? And if you remember in topic 1, you did have a case study essay, and fortunately or unfortunately, depending on if you enjoyed your case study, it does pop up quite a lot, right? And I think it's very important. This one goes without saying, because if you don't do an essay on your topic, on your case study, and that pops up, you're pretty stuffed. So you've really, like, 101 to cover yourself, do your case study. But then moving on from topic 1, what else in that topic you could potentially do is do like a little protection or global trade, because that kind of covers both sides of the equation. And then you can also bring in the things like, you know, the international organizations into that essay as well. So it really does give you quite good coverage.
And I think with the China trade war going on, US-China trade war, like it's made both of those, the case study, because a lot of people do China, and it's made global trade, right, very topical. So, you know, there is, you know, a fairly high probability that you may end up getting that as a result as one of your questions. Maybe not even as an essay. It could be a short answer, but if you've written an essay on it, you're going to feel pretty confident, right? So that's topic number 1. Topic number 2, you know, we're recommending do the CAD, the current account deficit, and do exchange rates. Now, they're interlinked, of course, but they're big areas that come up, and not always as essays. They often, to be honest, come up as short answer. But if you do the essays on them, you're covering yourself again, and that's the point, right? What about topic 3?
All right, so topic 3, you've got your 6 issues, right? So it seems like there's quite a fair bit of ground to cover, but actually, when you think about it, with topic 4 in mind, you actually can kind of get away with not focusing too much on economic growth, inflation, and unemployment, because those are covered with the macro policy essays. So what you'd instead probably want to focus on is, first of all, distribution of income. This does kind of get a little bit left behind sometimes, right? Because it is one of your objectives of fiscal policy, but we don't often talk about it the most. But yeah, so cover yourself with distribution of income.
And students get stumped with it often because they'll give really precise questions like, you know, you've got to discuss distribution of income for specific groups in an economy. And, you know, I think a lot of students just ignore distribution of income and then get that, and it's like...
It's definitely not a hard dot point either. It's
easy.
It's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. But it's just the fact with the preparation. If they're not making that preparation, then it really challenges them for it. What about the other one, topic 3?
So I think that this is an interesting one. I think typically I'd say environment, because, you know, you're not going to cover the environment as much in topic 4 when you're analysing policy. It's been less of a topical issue lately, though, because, you know, that the current federal government isn't really prioritising it. And we are seeing right now a lot more labour market challenges going on in the Australian economy. So if we're thinking generally, probably you do an environment to cover yourself there. If we're thinking topical right now, you might also want to revisit your labour market and unemployment. You know, you can make the judgment call on that, right? Which way do you land? And that might be also based on maybe the emphasis that your teacher has given in school. You know, use that as a bit of a guide, because that will help inform where you spend your time. So what about topic 4?
Well, this is where it really gets interesting, because it's actually quite predictable. You usually always have a macro. You might even have 2 macros, right? But generally, to prepare yourself, you just want to have a macro essay and a micro essay.
And with the macro one, my suggestion is you make it macro. Now, what I mean by that, I mean, that's a bad economics joke, right? Is that, you know, do a fiscal and monetary policy and look at and analyse the impact of fiscal and monetary policy on all of the objectives. Now, that's not really one essay.
Yeah.
It's a fat essay.
It's a super essay.
Exactly, right? But it covers you for so much. So that way you're just covering your bases. What about micro?
Well, micro, I would actually recommend obviously just doing the micro components, but also starting to move into the labour market stuff as well. Right, because there is a good bit of carryover between the two. And when I think about learning, I think it's really important to just learn by association. Right, the way our memory is constructed is it's really just about if you can create just little associations between what you've already learned, that actually helps you recall it a little bit better. So what we've kind of been driving towards is the fact that all of this stuff is connected, and if you can make the connection in your own head, that will make memorizing this so much easier, and also your essays better. So it's
Definitely.
a win-win.
Because, I mean, ultimately, what the essays are doing, you know, the economics course is taught ceteris paribus, right? It's a Latin term. Hopefully, you've heard of it before in economics. All other things remain equal, okay? So it's taught where we look at each of the chapters and the topics separately. What the HSC does and what your trials will do, though, the questions won't ask you separately. They will pull it all together and you'll have to then integrate it. And so that's why I think Terry's point is really, really critical. It is very, very important to look at integrating different chapters and ideas in your questions. So that's your 8 sort of essay questions that we recommend to get coverage. Now that leaves us with the final step number 4 in preparation for trials. So what's step number 4, Terry?
Well, I think considering the fact that you are going to probably for the first time be doing a 3-hour paper, and they are long, your hand's going to hurt at the end of it. I think the best advice we can give you for step 4 is to actually get some practice doing your full paper. Once you've prepared sufficiently and you're feeling confident, because one of the worst things you can do is do a paper when you're not ready.
That's right.
It's going to smash your confidence. But if you're ready, go do that full paper. And how many would you say you should do?
Yeah, look, again, I'd come back to that rule of 3, right? You want to try to do, I think, 3 papers at a minimum. Now, remember, you might be thinking, man, I was planning to do 10, okay, which, great to hear. What you've got to realize is that suggestions we've made in the prior steps are actually, you're already doing past papers. You know, if you're doing the short answer questions, you know, with the memorization, you're doing them, right? Writing 8 essays is already 4 past papers, technically, right? 2 essays are past papers. So note that this strategy isn't just about leaving the past papers to the end. You've been doing them, but you've been doing them deconstructed prior. Now it's about getting confident with the time conditions and really exposing yourself to a lot of multiple choice, because ultimately multiple choice is a fair bit of pattern recognition, right? You're going to see similar types of questions. They're just going to try to trick you with them, so you just need to be familiar. So we think 3 at a minimum. We want you to do them in full time conditions, and if you start getting tight on time, it's going to be counterintuitive, but actually give yourself 10% less time on the paper in practice so that you can really push yourself, so that when you get into the exam itself, you feel super confident and ready to nail it. So 3 past papers in timed conditions. So guys, to wrap up here, we've got 4 simple steps. Step number 1, get those notes done ASAP. It's the prep you need to do to start studying. Step number 2,
memorize your content.
Great, memorize the content using the rule of 3. Okay, step number 3 is write practice essays. We're going to write how many essays, Terry?
8, 2 per topic.
To get that coverage. And then the final step, guys, is do the rule of 3, 3 full past papers. Now, if you do this, both Terry and I are pretty confident that you're going to nail your HSC trials for economics. If you've got any questions about, prepping for the trials for economics, leave a comment below. We'll do our best to support you. Of course, if you haven't subscribed, we've got more HSC Economics review videos coming. And of course, all the best in your trial HSC exams.
Good luck.